See what a summer can do to you? All right, so let me switch back to this. Click OK. Okay, so now we got the voice. Very good. Thank you. Okay, what else? There's more stuff. Huh? The lab I usually do not record unless I have structured instruction. But usually what the lab is about is for all of you to do your own thing, and I will just be walking around to help you with the assignment. What about things that's happening in your own head? That is what you need to write down, okay? Your own understanding of the material that I'm talking about in your own words. That is what you really should be writing down, okay? There's no need to write down what I said. It's being recorded, okay? But if you write down the same concept, the same explanation, but in your own words, that is going to be helpful. And why do you think that is helpful? Seems kind of redundant. If Tech is recording all of his lectures, why do I want to keep my own notes? Yes?
Everybody learns in like a different way, so if you can teach it to yourself,
Exactly. Everybody learns differently. In other words, when I explain a particular concept, you tie it to some concepts that you have learned already in a particular way. The person next to you is going to tie that to something else that that person has learned, and that can be different from yours. So that is what you need to write down, is something that is specific to your own thought process that relates to the material that I'm talking about. Okay? All right. Very good. 7.2, I have not seen it for a long time, but if it does happen, I will intervene. Anything that is causing fear, intimidation, or discomfort in the class. Okay? Now, if I'm the one doing it, you guys can let me know. Okay? If I do it, not intentionally, but sometimes, some people say that I do those things, but I try my best not to. But if I do that, you have to let me know. Okay? Or if you don't want to let me know, you can go straight to the dean and let her know. The tech is causing fear, intimidation, or discomfort in his class. Are we good? All right. So these rules do not apply just to you. It also applies to me, which is also a good time to mention this particular sign here. No phones, which means you can have your phone, just don't talk on your phone during class. No food and no drinks. I will make a single exception in the case of drinks. If you have just plain water that you want to drink during class, it's okay in the classroom because we don't have any school computer in front of you. Okay, but in the lab, you cannot drink either because we have computers everywhere. So is that okay? If you want to drink just plain water, it's all fine, not a problem. All right. So 7.3 kind of goes without saying. Violent or other dangerous or endangering behaviors. The first day of class or orientation is mandatory, so if anyone is missing this session, that person will be dropped. Now, if I have room next week and that person comes back, I can add that person back. Accommodations. So it's just a policy, to basically state that, if anyone needs service from DSPS, that person can arrange those, resources. If that involves, having me to make some special accommodations in the classroom, let me know, okay? Because if there's a transcriber or captionist who needs access to a computer, who needs to plug into a computer, I need to reserve, certain spaces in the classroom for that person. Is that okay? All right. All right. So we're moving on to excessive absence. So excessive absence is defined as 6% or more of absences. So if you divide all the meeting time for this class in the entire semester, multiply that to 0.06, that would be the number of hours that someone can be absent before it is considered excessive. Are we doing okay so far? So that turns out to be 2 class meetings, okay? So the 3rd class meeting that somebody is missing can be considered as excessive already, unless they are excused. So we'll go over what is excused later on. So all this stuff here is really just the calculation stuff. So we can keep moving until we get to excused absences. So there are only a few kinds of absences that has to be excused. One is health related with documentation. It doesn't have to be coming from a doctor. It can come from a nurse. Can be coming from a health professional of some kind. Okay. The second one is athletes. If you're taking a class here and there's a competition, or you're in a sports team, representing ARC or something along that line, and your coach is giving you a slip of paper and say, okay, give this to your professor so that you can be excused, from those particular class sessions, they will be excused. Okay, and then the third one has to do with jury summons, military duties, and other things that the government requires you to do. So once again, if you have documentation or proof, you need to let me know of those two. You can kind of black out the portions that I really should not need to know. So it would only show your name, what it is about, and and it doesn't even have to show all the details if you don't want to show me. Like if you're requested to show up in court, all you have to display is which court, with your name on it, and the judge, someone's signature from the court. Okay, I don't need to know the details of the case. I just need to know that you were summoned by the court. So are we good with all this stuff here? Okay. So if your car breaks down, the bus, has an accident and did not come pick you up or something like that, they are not technically excused, okay? And that's what those 2 excused, unexcused absences are for the entire semester. Okay. Late policy is really easy for this class. There's no late policy. If Canvas, has a deadline of, let's say, 2 p.m. tomorrow, that literally means just 2 p.m. tomorrow, Pacific time. Okay, so unless, there's a very strange event and I'm using the time zone of somewhere else, it is using our time zone in Sacramento. Are we good? Because I can think of arguments like, well, it says 2 p.m., but it doesn't say which time zone. I thought it was Hawaiian time.
Doesn't PST
Stands for Pacific Standard, whatever time zone we are in. Follow tech's own time zone. How about that? Okay, academic dishonesty. This is how I look at it. Okay, academic dishonesty occurs when the student attempts to show possession of a level of competency, knowledge, or skill beyond the level of the student or some other students. In other words, the student can be doing it for himself or herself, or helping somebody else to achieve the same thing. Okay, that's it. Okay, I don't really list the methods or how it is done. It has to do with the intent and what is accomplished. So are we good so far? All right. So the other way to look at this, academic dishonesty is kind of look at it from the bright side, which is academic integrity. So what that means is the grade or points of a particular assessment, which can be a homework, can be a lab, can be a test, can be a quiz, can be the final exam, okay? It should reflect the academic performance of the student with the name on the test or the homework assignment or the account, from which the assignment is turned in, using the resources approved at the time that is approved, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's the positive way of looking at the same thing. Basically, okay, if all the rules are followed, then then it has academic integrity. Do we have any questions about this portion? Yes.
Are we going to be working like pair programming or the last class I took in 360 with Mukaram, she was
Uh-huh.
really big on collaborative work. Is that part of this class? Or?
So what I usually do now, I strongly encourage people to work independently, but I have seen people who benefit a lot from collaborative work. So what I will do is for labs and homework assignments, people can work together, but I still don't want to see the same solution. There's a difference between working together, as in discussing the concepts involved, um, and versus copying somebody's answers like verbatim. Okay, we'll talk about that just a little bit more. Okay, but in exams, okay, so in the two exams which I'll talk about, and also the final exam, definitely no collaboration. So is that clear? Homework, sort of okay, if you guys are not just straight up copying from somebody else. But for the final exam and the two other exams for this class, the two midterm exams, definitely no collaboration. Is that okay? All right. And that part actually ties into something that I will mention kind of again and again in this class, just because it's something that I'm obsessive with. It's one of my obsessions. It has to do with personality types. Let me just do a quick survey here. How many people know what is Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, MBTI? So we got a few people, okay? So if you don't know what it is, do you know of any type of personality test? There's Ocean, Big Five, Enneagram.
Big five. Big five?
Yeah.
It's like the best for determining personality, especially with data.
Yeah, so Big Five and Ocean are basically the same thing, because Ocean, represents OCEAN represents the five traits. There's also there are a few others too. Okay, but personality tests are helpful. Okay, if you use it only as raw data, sometimes it can be very helpful because it tells you what kind of learning style you have, how you interact with other people, and so on. Okay. So when I'm teaching a class, okay, whose learning style do you think I'm going to base on when I make up rules and when I make up questions and so on? Mine, exactly. Okay. So in the absence of other learning styles and other ways of, taking a class, I just default to my own learning style. And in my learning style, I do not collaborate at all. I was the lone wolf in my class or classes when I was in college. So when somebody asks me, can we collaborate? I actually have to think about it. And I can see that a lot of people benefit from collaboration, when they're learning. So I think it's a good thing. It's just that it did not occur to me, until I see other people doing it and see evidence of, it being beneficial. Okay, so we kind of have to keep that in mind. I have to keep that in mind, that we all learn and look at things differently. All right. So the limits test, if there's a arguable case, okay, if I accuse someone of cheating in a test, and that person says, no, I did not, okay, well, there's a limit test I can do, okay, which is to give that person a different test of the same material and of about the same difficulty. If that person cannot achieve the same result as the test or the assessment that I thought was the result of cheating, then I have proven my point. On the other hand, if the performance is about the same or even better than the test in question, then I was wrong. Okay, it's easy as that. All right, moving on. This paragraph, basically talks about why I'm, kind of focus on academic dishonesty and stuff like that. The consequences has changed. Okay, so if you have taken classes from me, this actually has changed. I do not. Every single incident is going to be reported now. Okay, now since homework is kind of, I just said that with homework and lab stuff, it can be collaborative. So I'm not going to report anything related to homework assignments. But the 2 midterm exams and the final exam, if I suspect and have proved that somebody, cheated, it will be reported by default to the Office of Student Conduct. So is that okay? Is that clear? All right. The reason why it is going to be reported, like even the first incident is going to be reported, is because I do not know of incidents from other classes. By law, you can maintain, as students, you have your own privacy. So I do not have access to records of, attempts of cheating and whatnot of students who are taking another class. Okay, but let's just say that there's a habitual, person who just, cheats through every single class. That person would not pop up on any radar if every professor said, well, I will handle that case in my class, but without involving the Office of Student Conduct. Because nobody has a central, quote unquote, centralized database to keep track of all of those incidents. So that is why, I'm changing my policy to report every single case to that office. Is that okay? What if someone says, but I didn't do it? TAC definitely wrongfully accused me of doing something that I did not. What do you think are the options of that person? It's on the screen. Where do you click to find out? Right here. Okay, so I give you a link to the Guide of Student Rights and Responsibility document. So it does describe, the grievance process. Okay, if somebody says, TAC did something inappropriate in class, or TAC wrongfully accused me of doing something that I did not, okay, read this document. Okay, it will tell, anyone who wants to file a grievance of what, type of incidents, that a student can grieve over, and also how to start the process, who to contact, which office, and so on and so forth. Is that okay? All right. So moving on. Classroom behavior, we talked about that a little bit. Disruptive behavior, let's try to kind of limit that, okay? Curb, unnecessary distractions, chatting, interrupting, and mobile devices. Interrupting is not so much of a problem. If you have a question and you raise your hand, and then I go like, okay, go ahead and ask your question, it's not a disruption. So do not interpret, quote unquote, disrupting as asking questions. It is somebody, screaming out something or asking a question without me stopping first and then telling that person to proceed. Why do you think that may become a problem when people start to do that? It can disrupt the flow of the lecture, but it happens all the time in Jerry's Springer, his show. So why would it not be a problem in his show, but it's a problem in this class? Why do people watch Jerry Springer? Because they like those disruptions, right? Let's break out a fight. But why are you here in this classroom? Exactly. So you come here for a different reason. I certainly do not hope that people would compare my lectures to the Jerry Springer show or Dr. Phil these days. All right, so section 16 is kind of long. I'm not going to read out the whole thing, how to attend, how to take, how to come to my classes. Just key points, okay? Key points. Do not try to copy everything that I say and everything that you see on the screen onto your own notes. Okay, we talked about that already. But what you can do is to look at the time. Okay, have your own watch, and when I start on a topic, just kind of jot down the time and the date. Why is that going to be helpful, or might be helpful? Yes. Yes, so you can skip to specific time of the video recorded on a specific date because you now have your own catalog of when I start to talk about which topic. Is that okay? So that certainly is something that can be helpful that you can write down that can help you study in the future. Okay. You can read my notes ahead of time. All the reading material is already on Canvas. Okay, I just follow those lectures or those links serially. So if I'm on a particular link, you can say, okay, I can read that link and maybe the next one. So you can read ahead of me, and that always helps. Section 17 is also really long. Okay, it talks about how to succeed in this particular class. It has to do with what I focus on when I come up with questions in midterms and the final exam, and what I consider important when I look at what I want a student to demonstrate in order to pass the class with what grade. So what do you think is important to me? Yes? Yep. So that would be the first one, okay? Very important, okay? I need to have evidence that you understand the material that we are teaching in this class. But how can I get that evidence? Yes? So application is how I can, I can gather evidence, because if I can read your mind, then I know whether you understand something or not. Well, then we have two questions. Do you want me to read your mind to give you a grade? Let's say yes, okay? I cannot do that. I'm not a mind reader, okay? I cannot do that either. So even if you said, yes, go ahead and read my mind, I don't have anything to hide, I cannot read it, okay? So I cannot know whether you understand something unless you can show me that you understand something. And the way you show me you understand something is to use those concepts to problem solve, which basically means I'll give you problems. You use what you learn to solve those problems, and then depending on whether your solution is correct or not, I can gather whether you understood the concepts or not. Is that okay? So that means understanding the material and knowing how to apply the material to problem solve is the most important thing that I use to assess, to assign a grade when you turn in something. Is that okay? What does that mean when it comes to time to study? How do you study for this class? Go ahead.
Apply yourself to the material to actually be able to teach someone else in a sense. That's how you know you understand it very well.
Okay. Yep.
But also throughout the whole semester, and like all at once right before the exam.
So you want to clear all the concepts as early as possible. Okay. Just reading is not enough. If somebody shows me, see, I can regurgitate, all the, I don't know how many pages. Let's just say 150 pages of stuff that I have written for this class. Is that telling me that somebody understands the material in this class? No. Because, it's just rote learning, okay? That's just memorization. I do not care about memorization. I can tell you right now, which I will, talk about a little bit later too. The two midterms and the final exam are open book and open notes. You can bring anything that is either handwritten or printed prior to the test. There's no amount limitation. It's not limited to one page or one notebook or one textbook. You can bring in anything you want, which basically means, I don't really care about whether you can memorize something. The test is about, here's a problem that you may not have seen, when you're doing your labs and whatnot, but all the labs, all the homework assignments, all the lectures will have bits and pieces, all the tools that you need to come up with the solution. The question is, can you make use of those tools to solve a problem that you may not have seen before the exam? So you will have to use logic to connect all the pieces in order to use what you have learned to solve the problem. Is that okay? All right. Yep.
Are there anything like practice exam questions that we'd be able to work on? Not necessarily
Yes.
questions that are like, okay.
So there are practice exams. Okay. So each midterm has its own practice exam. The final exam has its own practice exam too. The so-called practice exam are exactly the same the exams of a prior semester or prior semesters. Okay, if we have time, I can go back more than one semester, but usually I don't want to spend too much time to go back, to the previous exams because I want to make sure that I can also teach new material in this class. You can even just go back in time, go back to YouTube, okay, figure out about the same place in the semester, and just watch the solution of an exam in the previous semester. So what does that tell you about recycling questions and all that, all kinds of stuff? I don't. I always come up with new questions, every semester. Now, does that mean that, I may not have, sometimes I may forget that I have asked a question before in a certain semester? That can happen. In other words, if you can go back far enough, okay, like 6, 7 years or more, of all the questions that I have asked, when I teach this class, you might actually encounter this semester and go like, hey, that looks exactly the same as the question 7 years ago. That might occur accidentally, but don't count on it. Is that okay? All right. So I'm going to skip section 17, which is really long because it talks about, what understanding is, which is kind of difficult to say, right? How do you understand what understanding itself is?
Well, I understand it.
It's partly a logical thinking process, and part of it is actually intuitive. So it's subconscious. A part of it is subconscious, and a part of it is conscious, effort. So I'll skip this entire section, but you're encouraged to read that part. This part I do want to kind of go over a little bit, okay, because we talked about collaborating in homework assignments and in lab activities. And it's about independence, okay? Now remember, when I was in college, I was 100% independent. I would get the homework assignments done before the TA, the teaching assistant, had the key of the same assignment. Yes?
How do you transfer to the workforce? Isn't it all collaborative in all computer science jobs?
Let me tell you my nickname when I was in the workforce. 2 nicknames, actually, to be specific. The first nickname was Geekosaurus. And I'm not kidding. I am not joking, okay? One of my nicknames was Geekosaurus. And that was given to me by the second geekiest person in the company. So I had the title from, the other geeks. So that was one. The second one was, I'm trying to remember how many people I had in my division. 1 of 7. Okay, so 1 of 7, what kind of name is that? Okay, no. Yes, I think some. Go ahead. Yeah.
That you stand out?
No, I was 1 of 7. Okay, does anyone know who is 7 of 9? I'm hoping more people know about that one. Yes, so who is 7 of 9?
She was from Star Trek Voyager. She was rescued from the Borg. Basically, she was assimilated in the Borg.
Right.
Rescued.
but they never gave her an actual name, so her destination had always been 7 of 9. What does it mean, 7 of 9? She
was
was.
the seventh person of a group of unit of nine, I think.
Yes, she was the 7th person to join a group of 9. And I was one of 7 because I was the first of the software engineering group, which at the time had 7 people. And the way, because somebody asked me about workplace, how do I deal with workplace, situations? That's how we do things. We do things the Borg way. We have meetings, okay? I have assignments from above, from my boss, and then I lay everything out on the table and go like, okay, this is what we need to do, okay? And time frame is associated, each project or assignment has its own time frame on it. And then the group just kind of pick out pieces on their own. I never had to tell people what to do, except for one time. There was one piece that one of the engineers wanted to take on, and I said, no, I think I'm going to take that on, but I really want to do this. I want to learn about this, blah, blah, blah. I said, well, I understand you want to learn this, and it's a good thing that you want to learn it. But the deadline is next week, and if you're learning and trying to meet the deadline at the same time, it may not happen. This is kind of crucial, and I know the ins and outs of this already, so I think in this particular case, it's better for me to take this on because of the deadline, situation. So I only have to do intervention very occasionally. The rest of the time, I just let people do their own thing, and they can ask me because I've been with the company the longest, so I have the most knowledge about the product. But other than that, each person works on his or her own project. When I was with that company, I never had any problems with this approach. So does that answer the question? Sorry? For the most part? So which part is it not answering?
Like, because you still, if you're part of a team, you still gotta understand what the other projects are to be able to do your part. I'm assuming, say, if you had a whole project, you split it up into different pieces for
Yep.
everyone else. You still have to collaborate to know, like, say if someone made a piece of code that was supposed to be jumped into a bigger slot of code.
I don't have any problem with technical collaboration.
Okay,
In other
so
words,
that's what I was
if we need to decide on an API, because the API separates one piece and the other piece, where each piece can change on its own, but as long as the API itself remains the same, then you can contain the changes, right? So I don't have any problem communicating with people when it comes to technical specifications, the API, and technical stuff like that. Yep. Questions, I don't have any problem. I just have problems asking questions myself. Which is actually useful sometimes. So let's get on to this part here because I think it might be helpful. So if I expect 100% absolute independence when you guys do your own work, well, then there's no need to take a class. I mean, you can take an online class or just read a book and learn something on your own, right? So when I refer to independence in this context, I'm referring to the completion of assignment activities. So when should someone start to ask questions? I think that really is the question, right? So I give out an, yes, go ahead.
Is that the first sight of not understanding something?
So the first sight of the homework assignment may not be the best time to ask somebody else, right? Why not? I just gave a homework assignment to the whole class, okay? And I look at the homework assignment and go like, not getting this. Why would that may not be the best time to ask? I'm sorry?
You could struggle through it. Like,
You can struggle a little bit first, right? You can try a little bit first. So the next question is, well, how long should I try before I go like, maybe I should ask someone? That's the next question, right? So let's have an assumption. The homework assignment is due in a week, okay? And So when is a good time to start asking questions? We have 2 class meetings in a week, and I typically give you new homework assignments at the end of a lecture. So when would it be a reasonable or logical time to say, well, I'm not really getting this. I might want to ask someone, including myself or your fellow students. Okay? Say that one more time. Exactly. So at least give it 1 class meeting's time to try to soak and understand what needs to be done or how to do it. Okay? But if you cannot, okay, today is Monday, so Wednesday would be a good time to ask. Is that making any sense? Because physically we are together as a class, and 2, it gives you about 1 to 2 days to soak and try to think about it first. Does it make sense? I have to tell you, there are many times when someone raised a hand, and by the time I get to that hand, that person said, I figured it out already. I answered my own question. So I want you guys to keep that in mind, because the more time you spend thinking independently, the more you are actually absorbing the material. Because all that time that you're thinking, how do I solve this problem? What is this problem about? And so on and so forth. Your brain is doing all the heavy lifting of trying to understand the concept. How is that different from someone giving you the answer? Why are these 2 processes different?
You have to think about it.
But why is the struggling important? I guess that would be the essence of the question. You remember it better.
Because you make your own connections.
Exactly, because all that thinking is making connections inside your mind, interconnecting the concepts. When somebody gives you the answer, it's giving you like 1 or 2 connections, as opposed to, let's say, hundreds of connections intertwined between all the concepts. So that's the difference, and that's why I encourage people to spend at least 1 or 2 days to think about something before going like, well, I'm not really going anywhere with this. I want to ask someone about it. All right, cool. And how many people have encountered the terms linear learning versus random learning? Nobody has? Okay. When you take a class, okay, not exactly this one, but any class, how do you read the textbook? From the back?
No, front to back.
Oh, front to back. Okay. Okay, so if you are reading cover to cover from front to back, and this is your usual way of doing things, you are more or less a linear learner. Okay, I am what some people say, as a random learner. Okay, so a random learner does not start in any particular place in the textbook. I do not use the textbook until I need to use the textbook. So until I get a homework assignment and say, this is what you need to do, then I try to figure out what needs to be done. And if I don't know how to do it, then I would go to the index of the textbook, find the concept, jump right into that page 261, try to read that, and then if that has terms that I also do not understand, I keep repeating, I do this recursive search thing until I get to something that I can actually understand, and then I backtrack from that. Yes?
So like project-based learning.
Yes, it's kind of like project-based learning. A typical example or a typical evidence that somebody is a random learner is when you look at their browsers, okay, when they're working on something, if they have like 30 or 40 tabs open, they are probably a random learner. And that's usually happens when I learn something. It's like 30, 40 tabs open. It's like, but how do I keep track of that? I can show you. It's easy. You install browser plugins. It's a vertical tab thing, which is really helpful. because instead of trying to spread all the tabs horizontally on the top, where I have been in situations where this is not even the full resolution of my screen, but I have been in situations where all I can see in each tab is the X. It's how to close it. I cannot even see a single character about the title of that page. So it's hard for me to find out which one is which one. Which one talks about the syntax of the conditional statement in PHP? This way it's a lot easier for me to do that. And F1 will hide and display that. So it makes it very easy to kind of track stuff. Yep. It's called tree something tab something. Yeah, tree style tab, that's it. Yep. Yep. And when you have 20 or 40 tabs open at the same time, having a tab suspender is also very helpful, because otherwise this will chew up all the RAM you have on your computer in no time. You can also get a tab manager, so that you can save all the tabs in the order they're open. So if you shut down your computer, restart your computer, get back into the browser, you can just restore the entire session. All the tabs are exactly where they used to be, so you can continue your work. There you go. There we go. So moving on. Grading standard. So I'm pretty sure most of you know the A, B, C, D, F, in grade point average. The short description, I actually did some research on how each grade is corresponding to, or what word corresponds to each grade. A is excellent, B is good, C is actually satisfactory. I was a little surprised, but that's how it was described. D is actually low pass, and F is the only fail. Now, coming from Hong Kong, this was new to me, because in the high school exit examination of Hong Kong, they have grades all the way from A to H. A, B, C, D, E are passing grades. F, G, H are failing grades. So somebody can barely fail with an F, fail with a G, or fail badly with an H. There are plenty of people who jump off high buildings after the outcome is disclosed. But those are usually not the people who fail. Those are the people with 8 A's and 1 B. That 1 B is the reason to jump off a building to some people, which I never understand. Can you guys guess the range of my grades when I graduated from high school? Not quite. A to E. So I took the subject test on 8 subjects. I got 2 A's, 3 B's, 1 C, 1 D, and 1 E. It's full spectrum. Huh? Chinese. But you have to understand what they mean by Chinese. When the exit examination of Chinese asked me to regurgitate an entire writing or poem from an ancient writer or author, and I missed one entire paragraph, I think, and that's why I kind of borderline failed Chinese. It's all about memorization. It has nothing to do with understanding the content. Yep.
Did you go to university in Hong Kong or in America?
I did actually. I went to San Francisco State University for 2 years, took all the classes in computer science because I wanted to defer my GE until later, and then I transferred to the University of Hong Kong to finish my degree. Yep, I was the second class computer science class graduating in Hong Kong.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Interesting. So But what I want to do is to give you an idea of what each grade means, okay? When it comes to grading. So moving down, this table a little bit. So when I score, this is how I assign grades, okay? I know it's somewhat subjective, but some of it is not too subjective. Well, starting with A, okay, A is pretty easy. Perfect answer. I cannot think of a better way to answer that question, okay? And we can also start with F, okay? There's no answer, or the answer has nothing to do with what I'm asking. Okay, I might be asking, compare and contrast the RISC and CISC, architectures when it comes to returning from a subroutine. Okay, and somebody, give me a quote from a holy scripture of some kind. Okay, I'm pretty sure it's meaningful to that person, but it does not answer the question at all. So I will give that person it scores an F in that case. A B is basically a good answer, but there's some omission, there's some error, but otherwise it is still good. Okay, it shows, it has very strong evidence that that person actually has competency, just making some mistakes, here and there. Not too important type of mistakes. Okay. A C is, well, I can see that the main concept is understood and that person can apply the main concept, but a lot of things went wrong. Okay, so that would be a C. A D basically is, is telling me is there's insufficient evidence that that person understands the concept sufficiently. Okay, I can see some understanding, but I would not say that understanding is sufficient. Okay, so are we okay with these 5 descriptions, ranging from A to F? Yep.
Will any of that be based off like efficiency of code, or like?
Not in this class. So in this class, a working solution is a working solution. I don't mind if it is a little bit more of a scenic route. Yep.
Is there, so I see B and A, is it like an 85% or is it?
I'll show you the numbers.
Oh,
Yep. Now, if that is not clear to people, you can look at A, B, C, D, F, from job evaluation perspective, okay? A is like, I cannot have a better employee, okay? A. And F means, the employee does not perform at all or caused, a fire at work, just accidentally, but, I need to fire that person right away. A D is an employee who performs poorly to the point that the employer is losing money, very likely to be fired. So what is a C? A C means if I could find someone better to replace that person is gone. But until such time, I guess I can keep that person for a little bit longer. A B means good employee, don't want to get rid of, but I can show that person how to improve just a little bit. Okay? And of course, since I'm talking to a class like this, many of you do not have employment experience, so these descriptions may not be meaningful to you. So we look at Amazon product evaluation. What is a one-star product? It didn't work, okay, at all. It caused a fire. It destroyed some of my other equipment that I connected to. And A is basically saying, I bought this to do A, B, and C. I only found out that it can also do D, E, and F really well. Surprised, pleasantly. So that's just, different ways of explaining, what is A, B, C, D, F. So when it comes to, okay, this part didn't format correctly. So an A, at the end of the semester, anyone getting 87.5% or more is going to get an A. It's not the usual 90%. A B is 62.5% or more. A C is 37.5% or more. A D is 12.5% or more. And the rest is an F. So it's not your usual, 60% is a D. Yep. 60% or higher is a D, and then 70% or higher is a C, and so on. It's not using that scale at all. So your question in your mind right now is, but how do you make this happen? I don't have multiple choice questions. Every single question is evaluated, okay? When I score each question, I use the same scale, okay? 1.0 for a perfect answer, 0.5 for a C, 0 for an F, and and you can interpolate the B and the D. So if I score everything using this scale, I can use exactly the same scale at the end of the semester to assign the letter grades. Is that okay? Does that mean it's easy to get an A in this class? No. Well, you can ask other people, so don't ask me, okay? But ask people who have taken classes from me. Yep.
Do you post the current grade in Canvas?
I try my best to keep it up to date, or use automatic grading, automated grading.
And they're weighted in Canvas as well.
They are weighted as much as I can. So at the beginning of the semester, because we don't have exam 1, 2, or the final exam, so the grade that you see is only based on the homework assignments that you have turned in and graded. So it's not reflective of your actual grade at all. But as the semester progresses, it will get more and more accurate. Now the final exam, okay, this is the breakdown of the points. All the homework assignments, all the labs and stuff like that, this is the stuff that I say, you guys can collaborate if you want to. They make up 20% of the entire grade. All right? There are 3 exams, okay? The first exam, which is usually happening about 1/3 through the semester, carries also 20%. So all the homework assignments added together has exactly the same weight as the first midterm. The second midterm also has 20%. The final exam has 40%. So you have 20% of homework assignments for the entire semester, 20% coming from the first midterm, which will ask about the material that you have learned for the first third of the semester. The second exam is the second third of the semester. It's cumulative in the sense that there are concepts that depend on earlier concepts, but it is not cumulative in the sense of I will specifically ask something because I want to see whether you understand that specific concept. Okay? The final exam is comprehensive, but it does have a strong focus to the last third of the semester. And for the most part, all the concepts are interdependent. In other words, you really have to understand the concepts from the beginning in order to get to the final exam, even if I do not ask you a specific question in the final exam about that material. Are we doing okay so far with all of this? Are there any questions? Anything you want me to clarify? Nope. Okay, moving on. So if anyone, and this happens usually quite often, want more practice, grading is time consuming, very time consuming in my case. So if you want more stuff to work on, I can give you assignments that I do not grade. So what is the point if a homework assignment is not graded? Yep. To learn, exactly. So I'll give you a puzzle to solve, okay? Typically I can give you 1 to 2 weeks and go like, okay, this is the problem, this is what I want to do. Go ahead and try to figure out how to get it done, okay? So in 1 week's time, I will say, okay, remember last week, I gave you this little puzzle that I want you guys to solve. This is how we solve it, okay? Or this is how I would solve it, okay? How would that help you? I mean, it has no points added to your, homework assignments. Yep.
Sounds like the class is really exam heavy. The weight on the exam.
It is.
I would be led to believe that these unrated assignments are going to ultimately help you with the exam.
Exactly. Okay, I will quote one of my students in just the last semester, okay? There was one lab activity that the total of that lab activity was 7 points, and one of those points depend on a program. The rest are just multiple choice within Canvas. Okay, so only 1 point out of 7 of one lab, and you have like plenty of labs, throughout the semester. Okay, so in terms of actual point, to help you get a better grade, it is completely insignificant. Okay, and one student looked at that and right away said, "Oh, it's only 1 point. I'm not going to do it." And that was right after in class I said, if you want to understand the material, this is a very important homework assignment to do, because in the process of writing this program, you will understand the material, or at least know what you're not understanding. Then you can ask questions about those things. And then one student just decided to go like, well, it's only 1 point out of 7, and this is one lab out of many labs. I'm not going to do it. It's not worth my time. Does anyone want to guess the grade that person was getting? It was just passing. That person passed the class with a C, but it wasn't helpful. Okay. So do we have any more questions about what activities we have in this class, the syllabus in general? Nope. Okay. So the last portion is the tentative schedule of topics for this class, with a very emphasis on tentative. Okay, so these are all kind of subject to be changed, and reordered, but I am required to give you a timetable. Any questions? Yes. Required text. Very good. Okay, somebody asked the question of how do we get to the text of this class? So we just go back to the top of this page, go to home, and I know there's a way to show a student view, but I cannot remember. But everything that is grayed out here is not. All of this stuff here is reading for you. I think about 1/4 of the class, came visit the website before the first day of class. So good for you. But if you do it now, it's okay too. Okay, all of the reading material are links from Canvas. So you do not have to buy any textbook. There's no textbook to buy for this class. So I guess it makes it one of those zero textbook cost classes. It's both good and bad. Okay, the good thing is you don't have to spend any money. The bad thing is, well, my writing is not. I don't have a publisher behind me. I don't have any editors. I don't have any illustrators. I don't have the full support of someone who writes a textbook. So if you find any mistakes, let me know. I can fix those like literally right away. Okay, I can show you how I do that in minutes. Okay. If you think a picture might be helpful to explain certain things, I can try to include pictures. So these documents are living documents. I mean, they're easy to change. I can easily add or remove your material as we go. Do we have any questions? Yes.
I'm still on the wait list.
Okay, so the way we're going to do this is I forgot to bring my row sheet today. So instead of doing the row sheet, if you're already in class, I want you to sign in to Canvas, to this class, okay, and just click on the syllabus. So I'm going to use that in Canvas to take roll for people who are in class, who are enrolled in class. If you're on wait list, when I get to the lab, you can just, I'll ask you for your student ID. So I will add you to the wait list in Canvas. But until I can count how many people from the enrolled portion, I cannot start to send out permission numbers. So I think by Wednesday, I can start to give people permission numbers to add to the class. But even today, I will add people to Canvas so you have access to the material. Okay? So we are all going to move on to the lab in 15 minutes. Oh, actually, that clock is wrong. In 2 minutes, we are almost there. Okay, so when we get to the lab, if you're enrolled in class, go ahead and take a seat If you are not enrolled in class, you're on wait list. Let people who are enrolled have some place to sit down first. And I'm pretty sure there are some people who have to stand in the back of the classroom. So I'll continue some discussions during lab today. You had a question, sir?
Yeah, is your lab mandatory attendance every session?
Yes, because it is in the schedule. It is actually mandatory.
Excuse me, I came a little bit late today. So, do you have any list to for presentation? Have the students show up?